Welcome into NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey as we break down the latest PFF 2024 NFL Draft Big Board on the verge of college football's Week 0 getting started. Some changes made from PFF's last one, but not at number 1. Caleb Williams remains the top player on the board. I would say to the surprise of absolutely nobody, although we'll get to Drake Maye here later on, and there is plenty of good interest in multiple quarterbacks in this year's class. Williams has been viewed as the consensus top player in as far as the consensus can be almost a year out from the actual draft. Now, there's been some general interpretation, some loose interpretation of Caleb Williams saying, well, he'll make a decision after the year, which I view as he's going to focus on football this year. Some are like, leverage is not going to turn pro. He's going to turn pro. I am convinced of it. There's no reason for Caleb Williams, barring injury or a disastrous season, to go back to USC next year. So will he turn pro, assuming nothing bad happens? Go vote in the comments. I believe in democracy, so your two options are Y for yes and D for duh. Number 2 on the list from PFF is Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like if Marvin Harrison had a son who was bigger, which is kind of crazy to think about there. Take away the quarterback value, you can make an argument Harrison is number 1 there. No complaints about the OSU product at number 2. Brock Bowers is number 3, which is very early for a tight end, although I would argue Bowers is just a really great slot receiver who can block a little bit. We'll see where he ends up going. Teams just don't value that position as much. Number 4, one of my guys from this past year's cycle, technically speaking. If you've been subscribed for a while, you knew how much I liked Olumuyiwa Fashanu, the offensive tackle from Penn State. Had he turned pro, I think he would have been the first tackle taken, even over Paris Johnson. He goes back to school for one more year. He is still going to be a very early first-round pick. Now, Drake Maye was number 2 on the last PFF Big Board. He ends up sliding down to number 5 this time around, but there is still plenty to like about the UNC product, who might have a better year in a less gimmicky offense for the Tar Heels. Now, if you want a new 2024 NFL mock draft, I think that's awesome. Show us you do by liking today's video right now. Outside the top 5, gets a little bit more up for debates. Jared Verse could have been a top 20-ish pick. I think a lot of these defensive players on here are, there's 8 defensive guys in a row coming up. I think that's a little bit early relative to what I see from them, but someone's got to be 6, 8, 9, 10, and I do think Verse is the top edge rusher right now in the class. No complaints about the next 2 guys, both of them being corners. Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama and Kalen King out of Penn State. Both guys have shown very good production, very solid ball skills plays, everything you're looking for in a corner. No complaints about those guys being high. Now, Chop Robinson might have some of the best tools of the draft-eligible pass rushing products, but he's still a bit more of an upside than developed player there. So 9's a little bit high, but it also could look low if he has a massive breakout season. Jer'Zhan Newton out of Illinois is number 10 on this list, which I don't hate. Again, I think it's a little high for some of these defensive tackles. I might have bumped up some of the offensive linemen and or maybe a wide receiver a little bit higher, but when you get to the NFL draft, looking a full year ahead, there is plenty of projection involved. So with that in mind, who is your favorite player in the 2024 NFL draft class? At least for now. You have, of course, the right to change. That's going to be today's pinned comment, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, probably a better prospect than Riley Moss. I think top 11's a little bit rich, but that's okay. Leonard Taylor out of Miami, who I think has the traits to be even above Jer'Zhan Newton. Still kind of a bit of a work in progress like a lot of these young defensive pieces are, but there is a lot to like about his untapped upside and the flashes we saw last year for the Hurricanes. Latu out of UCLA, which I think is a nice sleeper first-round name. I don't know if I put him top 15, but I do appreciate the Bruin getting some love here. I do think Malik Neighbors should be number 2 among the wide receivers. We'll get to the other options here in a little bit. LSU started to play a lot better last year once Neighbors broke out, because remember, supposed to be some other players for LSU who were great, and then they kind of didn't emerge. Neighbors is the one who did. Right this second, I think I actually might take Cameron Kinchins over Leonard Taylor as a slightly more polished product. I love ball skills in my safeties, and Kinchins has that. It's a solid safety class. Early results seem to indicate. Emeka Egbuka, next up here out of Ohio State. 2 OSU players in the top 20, both of them playing receiver. Wait a minute, where have we seen that before? OSU is turning into this era wide receiver U. Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, I think, will be a pretty consistently mocked first-round player. There are other tackles that I think you could argue are above him, even though I wouldn't put Graham Barton in that list, who's number 18 here. Barton might have to kick inside to guard in the NFL, but that back end of round 1 range, which maybe not quite 18, but things are going to change, I think is a decent spot for him. I do appreciate the love for Keon Coleman here, who I love the size that Johnny Wilson brings. More on him in a little bit. But FSU's got actually a bunch of very good football players this year, kind of an under-the-radar grouping. And Coleman, the Michigan State transfer, is going to be a much more household name when he's not catching passes from a bunch of bums like Sparty had last year. Sorry, Michigan State fans, you know I'm right. Chris Jenkins, the next in a long line of successful athletic defensive linemen for the Michigan Wolverines. Don't mind him being here in the top 20. Josh Newton was maybe the overlooked TCU corner last year, but has plenty of fans around the NFL. He checks in at 21. I'm a little bit surprised to see Dallas Turner down here at number 22. I think there's a lot of ability for Turner, who is a little bit more undersized than, a Robinson or a Verse in terms of just the pure weight. But I think he's going to have a massive breakout year. I would not be surprised if he moves up several spots when we get to the actual draft time. How about Bo Nix at 23? Now, I will make note this is the second to last quarterback on the list, and you will not be seeing Texas's. You will not, almost got out of order there. You will not be seeing quarterbacks, including but not limited to Riley Leonard, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, and Texas's Quinn Ewers. Instead, it's somebody else. But Nix checks in at 23. Now, this is still high for me. I won't lie to you guys. But Bo Nix is a drastically different and better quarterback than the guy we saw at Auburn, who I thought was, frankly, a little bit of a joke, a meme to a certain extent. Like, he was not very good. He had struggled. At Oregon, he's been a legitimate Heisman Trophy contender who put up awesome numbers and damn near exceeded his total production in 1 year. Bo Nix is now a legitimate NFL draft prospect, even if he's not maybe a round 1 pick for you. So what round will Bo Nix be drafted in? I've slandered him plenty. He is now a very real NFL caliber prospect. Go vote for me in the comment section right now. All right, J.C. Latham, who I think could be a little bit higher, big, mauling, hulking, right tackle prospect. He's at 24. I would have moved him up higher. We mentioned Florida State having some dudes this year. Trey Benson, the running back, is absolutely one of them. I think the Seminoles are going to be one of the more fun, underrated teams to watch this year. All right, we'll go a bit faster now for the back half of the top 50. A.D. Mitchell at 26. The raw talent is there. We have not seen nearly enough of it for me to put him at 26. He's a wild card who, kind of like Jaleel Billingsley last year, could be a first-round pick. Or, maybe he continues to knock on the football field and goes back to school or transfers or goes undrafted. Like, that's too rich for me. Johnny Wilson's a height, weight, speed freak. Like, he's 6'6". It's like, and you're looking at another version of, like, Devin Funchess maybe, even a little bit bigger. I do think 27's a bit early. Blake Corum is number 28, the Michigan running back, who probably would have been a top 50-ish pick had he gone pro when he stayed healthy last year. I do think Xavier Worthy should be ahead of A.D. Mitchell. Got to work on some drops there. I'm not on board, sorry Huskies fans, with Michael Penix at number 30. He's just, the injuries are such a real concern for me that I can't justify putting him in there at number 30 from that perspective. Number 31 is Amarius Mims out of Georgia, who, small sample size, awesome potential traits that we haven't seen fully developed yet. Braylon Trice, I think, is going to be a good NFL player. Not sure he's quite top 30 for me. Ladd McConkey, which I think is what what's-his-face was what Greedo said when he got killed by Han Solo. I'm not sure I'm buying him at 33, but you know what? That's okay. Donovan Edwards, I like at 34. I think he can make an argument he's better than Blake Corum. I think Barrett Carter is the better Clemson linebacker as well. Now, this is going to be your one-stop shop for all the best NFL draft coverage here on YouTube. I know it's been a quiet portion of the year, haven't done much, but summer scouting takes time for me to watch all these guys, and we're not really getting out the content in the same way. But that'll change soon. Hit that sub button if you haven't already, youtube.com/chatnfl. Mason Smith with 2 A's could easily be a top 20 player for me. I think some of those other DTs they had higher, PFF did. Smith is, again, it's a gamble. It's banking on a big-time breakout season. He wasn't healthy last year. Now that he is, do not ignore him. Rome Odunze out of Washington, I actually would put above Michael Penix. Of all the talented Washington Huskies, I think Odunze is the one I like the most. JT Tuimoloau flashed against Penn State in particular last year, much like Smith, still a small sample size, plenty of upside there. I like seeing some love for Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. Been kind of a quiet-ish draft cycle this year for Clemson. This is not the same loaded grouping we've seen in some years past, but Wiggins is up there. Javian Cohen, I don't know about him at 40. He transfers from Alabama, and look, Mario Cristobal can do some great work with offensive linemen, but I'm not sure he was going to start for the Crimson Tide, so that's kind of a red flag for me. Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. Hey, another great Wisconsin back, right? I'm very curious how he fits in this new offense that's going to be what I'm calling it the Dairy Raid offense, a lot more passing. We'll see how he fits and how that projects to the NFL then. Kalen Bullock and Tyler Nubin. Look at that, 2 more safeties. I'm a sucker for safeties. I like that. Jatavion Sanders out of Texas, a.k.a. JT Sanders. Everyone correctly pays attention to Brock Bowers. I do think PFF nailed this with Sanders being tight end number 2. Jeremiah Trotter out of Clemson has the legacy going more into the Clemson film this offseason. I didn't like him as much as I thought I was going to, frankly. Cedric Van Pran has always been a PFF favorite. I'm not sure he ends up being a true top 50 pick, but I'm not that mad at it. Antoine Wells out of South Carolina, some more receivers, along with Malachi Corley. He'll put up stupid numbers in the Western Kentucky offense. Then there's Rook Orororo out of Clemson, who has a lot of untapped ability there. I think there's some really good traits that are worth developing there. Clemson's defense has their players more so than offense this year. And then Brandon Dorlus, who I would not be surprised if he doesn't emerge as Oregon's top defensive lineman. They have a nice transfer from South Carolina. So who did PFF leave off of their 2024 NFL Draft Big Board? Who are they hating on? Sound off for me in the comment section right now.